What if the reason your mind will not switch off tonight is not that you are broken beyond repair, but that your soul is hungry for something deeper than the noise? Lay that thought softly in your chest. Tonight, we will listen to Isaiah's visions, images that act like parables, pointing gently toward Jesus, and to a rest that is not escape but a surrender held by the life he gives. I will read. I will not lecture. Between the readings I will offer a few quiet invitations, a single image to hold, a single breath to follow. If these long, peaceful scripture readings help your nights, consider subscribing so more weary hearts can find this quiet space. Isaiah speaks in pictures. He sings with lament and with promise. He sees judgment and mercy braided together. Listen for the way the prophet paints a scene, as if he were telling a story to close the eyes of a restless child, so that the heart can find a hand to hold. We will move through 5 parable-like scenes tonight. The vineyard that bore no fruit, the throne room where holiness meets human frailty, the servant who bears our wounds, the branch that brings peace, and the sweep of new creation. Each will point us toward Jesus and toward a posture of rest. Parable of the vineyard. Hear now the voice of one who tended a vineyard, who loved it like a song. Imagine a man bent over rows of vines at dusk, counting the green clusters, expecting sweetness. Isaiah sets the scene. Listen as the prophet says, I will sing of my beloved's vineyard. He planted it on a fertile slope, cleared the stones, and planted choice vines. He built a watchtower and made a winepress. He expected a harvest of good grapes, but it yielded sour fruit instead. Now hear the judgment. The hedges are broken, the vines are trampled, and the ground lies wasted. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is Israel, and he looked for justice but saw wrongdoing. He looked for faithfulness, but found only cries of shame. Pause with that picture. A husbandman's careful tending, a patient hope not met. Isaiah does not shy from grief. He names God's longing and God's sorrow at what the vineyard became. Yet even here, beneath the prophet's stark language, there is tenderness, an ache that assumes a relationship worth grieving. Let this image be a parable. God expects fruit, but his expectation is not cold demand. It is the longing of a lover who has given care and still waits. If you find your soul harsh with self-judgment tonight, if you catalog failures under the lamp and measure yourself by unmet hopes, hold this instead. God's grief over the vineyard is rooted in a love that cared enough to plant, to clear stones, to tend through seasons. That care continues even when the harvest disappoints. Close your hands around a small mental image. Stand at the edge of a vineyard at sunset. The work has been done. The tools lie near the gate. Let your hands rest without needing to reach for them. Imagine placing your labor, your lists, your regrets, into the open soil and stepping back with God, who is both gardener and guest. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out, letting the expectation that drives your weary striving soften into something like trust. Isaiah's vineyard also speaks of patient correction. When the owner judges, it is not a capricious fury but a stubborn hope to make things right. There are seasons of pruning that hurt, but that open the vine to new life. If worry has tightened your chest into a small, hard place, imagine a gentle pruning, painful at the moment, but aimed at future fruit. Rest in the knowledge that the Lord's work is not distant from your suffering. His hands know the soil of your life. Now, as the vineyard scene settles, hear one short word Isaiah breathed after that lament. The Lord still calls for justice, yet calls also for mercy. Listen to that tension. Do not fear it. Let it rock you into sleep like the ebb and flow of a tide, a push toward honest change, and an undertow of steadfast compassion that carries you forward even when you cannot change everything tonight. Throne Room Parable. We turn now from earth to the court of heaven, where the prophet sees the Lord high and exalted, and the thresholds tremble with the weight of holiness. This is not a picture meant to frighten the small. It is a picture meant to steady the large unsettledness in your chest. Isaiah speaks and we hear, In the year that the king died, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up. The train of his robe filled the temple. Seraphim stood above, each with 6 wings, 2 to cover their faces, 2 to cover their feet, and 2 to fly. They called to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. The thresholds shook and smoke filled the place. Hold the honesty of that. Holiness is weighty. It does not ignore our smallness. Yet in that very scene, a coal is taken and touched to the prophet's lips, an act of cleansing, of making speech possible again. Hear these words quietly. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. Imagine now Isaiah's next gentler voice, the one who comforts. Comfort, comfort my people. Speak tenderly to the city. A voice calls out in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. Every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain and hill made low. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever. There is a movement here from the terrifying beauty of holiness to the hush of God's consolation. In one moment the prophet is undone by vision. In the next, the Lord draws near to make speech possible, to bring comfort into exile's dry places. If your night is full of shame, thoughts that replay old failures like a wounded gramophone, let this throne room parable bring a softer chord. Holiness does not leave us out. It cleanses and then commissions the broken. Rest your attention on a simple image. A small coal, glowing and warm, touched to your lips, not to scorch, but to free your voice from bitterness and to let truth be spoken without the sharpness that keeps you awake. Breathe as if that coal were the light at the center of your chest. Inhale quiet. Exhale the tightness. Second by second, invite the Lord's presence to steady pride, fear, and the hunger for control. This parable also gives us a promise. The created things wither, but the Lord's word endures. When your mind clings to every worry, future troubles listed in a litany it cannot amend, give it the horizon of the eternal word. Let the impermanence of your anxieties shrink in the light of the Lord's steadfastness. You are not abandoned to your replaying thoughts. There is one whose voice calls into the wilderness, making paths where you could not see them. The suffering servant parable. Now we come to a parable that settles like a pillow under the weary head, the picture of the one who bears. Isaiah paints a quiet, grave portrait of a servant who is acquainted with grief, who is pierced, and who yet accomplishes healing by taking on what is not his own. Christians over the centuries have read this and seen Jesus standing in its depth, bearing what you cannot bear for yourself, carrying the burden so you may sleep. Listen as the prophet describes him. There is a man who grew up like a tender shoot, who had no beauty that would attract us, no form that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. We turned away from him, counting him among the afflicted and ashamed. Yet it was our pains that he bore. Our sufferings were laid upon him. He was pierced for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. Like a lamb led to the slaughter and silent before its shearers, he opened not his mouth. He was cut off from the land of the living for the transgression of my people, and though he bore the sins of many, he was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death. Take that in slowly. The language is plain and it is painful. Isaiah does not soften the reality of suffering. He names it with clarity, yet in the same breath he links suffering to a purpose beyond mere pain. The servant's bearing is not senseless. It is redemptive. He becomes the place where wrong is held and made right. If guilt has been like a loop in your mind, replaying what you cannot undo, bring this image near. The servant carrying the ledger of wrong, not to shame, but to cancel. Picture yourself setting that ledger down at his feet. You are not consigned to endless tallying. Here is someone who has borne the account. His quiet labor opens a new ledger, one of healing. Let your breath follow a simple rhythm. Imagine inhaling the weight. Let the in-breath gather all that aches, and exhale it toward the servant in the image, knowing he will hold it. Do this without hurry. With each round, the pressure in your chest may loosen, not because pain is erased instantly, but because it is now held in a place made for holding. Isaiah's voice then speaks of a paradox. Through suffering comes life. The servant's wound is the doorway to peace. Christians point to Jesus when they hear this, because the life and death and rising of Christ resonate with the prophet's portrait. The New Testament reads this prophecy as fulfilled in him. It sees the servant's bearing as the center of God's work to restore the world. That is why tonight this passage can lull a troubled heart. There is a finishedness to what was done, an atonement that unfastens the hands that have been tied by guilt. Hold an image now, a simple field at dusk. You come empty-handed and lay your burdens in a quiet place. Stones, loud thoughts, the small sharp things you have turned over for years, place them on the grass. The servant does not collect them to file them away. He takes them into himself and lays down with them until dawn. You do not need to be the one to carry them any longer. Listen as Isaiah continues to unfold this scene. He was assigned a grave with the wicked and a tomb with the rich, because he had done no violence and had not spoken deceit. Yet it was the Lord's will to crush him and to make his life an offering for sin. He shall see his offspring and prolong his days. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Out of his anguish he shall see light and be satisfied. By his knowledge my righteous servant shall justify many, and he shall bear their iniquities. There is an intimacy in those lines: anguish, light, satisfaction. The servant does not bear pain that remains unresolved. The bearing leads to sight. He sees light. He is satisfied. The work has an end, and that end is life for others. If your night is full of replayed images, conversations you cannot rewind, words you wish you had not spoken, let the servant's satisfaction be the pillow beneath your head. This is not a dismissal of sorrow. It is an offer. Your sorrow can be held in one whose anguish gave birth to light. Sleep is not avoidance, but trust that what needs making right has been set upon the shoulders capable of doing so. Now imagine a slow, steady scene. A low field under a wide sky. The stars are few and constant. There is a faint rustle of grass. You place your heavy things there, and you turn your face to see just beyond the horizon a light that is not yours, but that invites you. Breathe toward that light. Let your body be small in that vastness. Feel how the weight in your hands is lessened by presence rather than by your own strength. We will linger with this servant image for longer soon. There is more to hear in the quiet testimonies of Isaiah 53, and as you listen, allow the truth of his bearing to draw you nearer to rest rather than to reawaken accusation. The story Isaiah tells is both grave and gracious, grave in its honesty about sin and sorrow, gracious in its assurance that someone has already carried the burden so you may sleep. Transitioning now, keep this picture: coal for lips, vineyard at dusk, a field where burdens are set down, close to your chest. Each of these images works like a lullaby in a different key. The vineyard calls for surrender, the throne room calls for cleansing and consolation, and the servant calls for restful acceptance of a finished work. As your breathing slows, know that these scenes do not demand immediate action. They are invitations to come near, to let the imagination be guided by Scripture into a stillness held by the Lord. We will continue with the servant's story, and then move toward images of the branch and the new creation, where peace is pictured in the smallness of a child leading wild animals and in rivers that make a city bloom. For now, remain with the servant's work. It is where the night finds its deepest rest. We will linger with the servant's image a while longer. Listen now as Isaiah continues to unspool the picture of one who bears in silence, and let each phrase sink like a soft stone into a still pond. Behold the servant of the Lord, who has believed what we have heard. For his appearance was without splendor, and his form without beauty, that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. We hid our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastisement that brought us peace was upon him, and with his wounds we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned, every one, to his own way. And the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He was led as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth. He was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? for he was cut off from the land of the living. For the transgression of my people he was stricken, and he made his grave with the wicked and with a rich man in his death, although he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He has put him to grief. When you make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his offspring, he shall prolong his days, and the will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. He shall see the labor of his soul and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. Let that reading sit inside you without hurry. There is a roughness to the language, pierced, crushed, bruised, and there is also a clear, unambiguous purpose stitched through it, bearing that leads to healing, silence that becomes intercession, brokenness that yields righteousness for others. Isaiah holds both the pain and the meaning of that pain. He does not economize on honesty, yet he invites the listener to the rest that follows the bearing, not a rest that disregards hurt, but a rest that trusts a hand has already taken on the ledger. As you lie there, envision the servant's posture. He is not remote or untouched by your small private griefs. He is acquainted with them. Picture him stooping low enough to pick up the particular stones whose edges you know by heart. The sharp words, the hollow victories, the quiet betrayals that replay in your mind at night. See him lift them without clamor, hold them like soaked cloths until they lose their sting. The scene is simple. One who has taken what you could not carry and made it the seed for new life. Breathe with that image. Inhale and gather what presses you down. Names of failures, images of regret, the worry you cannot unglue from your thoughts. Imagine exhaling all of them toward the servant, not as a command, but as an offering you place into hands that are made for this work. Repeat this quietly, slowly. Inhale, gather. Exhale, release. Do not strive to forget. Let the act of release be itself a small surrender, tender and confident. Notice, too, the paradox Isaiah insists on. Suffering is not merely an obstacle to God's purpose. In this portrait, it becomes the means of redemption. The servant's silence before accusation, his willing bearing of what is not his. These are the instruments by which peace is purchased. Christians read this and see Jesus in the framing, but the prophet himself presents the scene so starkly that rest follows naturally for those who are able to trust the story. If your conscience has been a judge that never sleeps, allow this passage to be the gentle hand that lifts the gavel. Now linger a little longer in the heart of the passage. Hear again the calm certainties. The chastisement that brought us peace was upon him. By his wounds we are healed. The Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. None of these phrases promise a life without sorrow or a removal of every pain this side of heaven. They promise rather that there is a center to your suffering that has been taken and held by one whose work releases you to rest. That is the deeply restful theology of Isaiah 53. Pain is real, bearing is real, healing, true healing, comes through a work that has been completed on our behalf. If any thought tonight says, I must keep tally, I must keep watch, counter it with a small image. A ledger with the columns closed, the pages turned to another hand. You are invited to set the pen aside. Sleep is not an abdication of responsibility. It is an acceptance that some accounts have already been settled by love. Let that acceptance be your pillow. Before we move on, allow one quiet line of application to settle. To rest in this servant is not a license to ignore life, but an invitation to stop carrying alone. Imagine the weight redistributing itself, some of it drawn toward the servant, some of it simply dissolving under the balm of his work. Tell yourself softly, I do not have to bear this alone tonight. The phrase may be small, but let it be true in the dark. Transition now with a breath, and turn the mind toward images of peace that follow the servant's work, a branch that springs from a stump, a wilderness that blooms, a little child leading animals in trust. These are the visions that complete Isaiah's portrait of restoration. They show a world rearranged, calm in shape, and generous in safety. Hold the servant's quiet victory as the ground from which these peace pictures grow. The branch and peace parable. Listen now to a different kind of picture. The stump that surprises the field by sending up a new shoot, a branch that bears the scent of justice and the hush of righteousness. Isaiah paints this as a future rooted in promise, an image of safety after violence, of right rule after chaos. Hear the prophet's voice. A shoot shall come out from the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and fear of the Lord. His delight shall be in the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge by what his eyes see, nor decide by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat. The calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze. Their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Let these images move slowly through your mind like a gentle procession. The branch is not just a symbol of political order. It is a picture of a world whose crooked lines are made straight and whose violence is finally disarmed. Isaiah wants you to taste the safety of such a world, even if you do so only in imagination tonight. Picture a small child walking across a meadow where wildness has been tamed, not by domination, but by a deep-rooted peace. Imagine the child's hand in yours, steady and light. Connect this branch to the servant's work. The peace that lets a child lead the beasts grows from the justice and righteousness that the branch embodies. That righteousness is traced back through the servant's bearing to the one who has made the way possible. Christians see in this the Jesus who reigns, not a tyrant, but a shepherd king whose rule is marked by wisdom and mercy. The New Testament reads Isaiah and finds the pattern fulfilled in him. The prophetic branch and the suffering servant are not separate for those who trace the story of redemption. They are two notes of the same song. Breathe now into a simple image. Feel the steadiness of a branch at your shoulder. Its bark is rough, true to reality, but its leaves are soft. Rest your hand there in imagination. Let the branch be a support rather than a burden. If your shoulders are tense from guarding against imagined threats, place them against the imagined bark and feel a transfer of weight. The world is not resolved by your vigilance alone. There is a branching, not immediate removal of every danger, but a promised rearrangement of the world toward peace. Now shift your attention to the animal pictures, those strangely gentle scenes of predator and prey together. These are not nursery fantasies. They are symbolic of the deepest rearrangement of things that have been bent by sin and violence. Let this be an image of your inner life. Parts of you that have felt like predators hunting the peace of other parts, anger, shame, fear, are invited into a new attic where they no longer rule. Consider for a moment a small clearing where what used to consume you instead rests. The clearing is not a denial of what hurt you. It is the hospitality of a world remade. Lean into a slow exhale and hold that clearing for a few breaths. Each breath allows the muscles around your jaw and your heart to unwind. Nothing about this practice is a performance. It is a gentle permission to believe a restored world is promised and to let that promise calm the body's urgency. Isaiah 35 continues the picture of healed pathways and flowering strength. Hear it now. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom like the crocus. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the majesty of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of the Lord, the majesty of our God. Strengthen the weak hands and make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong, fear not. Behold, your God will come with vengeance. With the recompense of God, he will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then shall the lame man leap like a deer, and the tongue of the mute sing for joy. For waters shall break forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water. And a highway shall be there, and it shall be called the way of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it, but it shall be for those who walk on the way. And the redeemed shall walk there, and the ransomed of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with singing. Let the sound of those words be a balm, the desert blooming, streams appearing, handicaps transformed into celebration. These are images meant to be held in the imagination as antidotes to anxiety. Things can be different. Restoration is a reality anticipated by God. If you are worn out by the long dry seasons of life, hold one small phrase: waters shall break forth in the wilderness. Picture a thin stream at first, then a widening band of coolness, and then a place where you can wash your face and breathe more freely. Do not worry about the pace of change. Isaiah's images often compress a long arc into a single picture. In your life, perhaps change will be slow. Perhaps it will be surprising and sudden. For tonight, let it be a promise large enough to make your chest unlearn the habit of waking to worry. Let the promise enter the place where the night has hollowed you out and begin to refill it with the quiet image of a pool. Now breathe once more, slowly, and allow those branch images and water images to merge in your mind. The servant bore, the branch brings peace. The wilderness blooms. Hold them together like three small stones in the palm of your hand. Feel their weight, but not as a burden. Feel them as anchors. New creation and Zion montage. We move next to the prophet's broader vistas, those sweeping lines that talk about new heavens and a reconstituted earth, where sorrow is visited by the mercy of God and the pattern of existence itself is renewed. These are not escapist fantasies. They are promised remaking, the Lord promising to do a work that reaches to the deepest textures of life. Listen to a handful of these long, reassuring lines and let them form a gentle tapestry. Consider first this quiet strength. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not faint or be weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Even youths shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Hear the promise of renewed strength as something tender, not coercive. The Lord does not chide you for being tired. The Lord understands that weariness is the language of living in a frayed world. The gift offered is not a demand to perform better, but a kindness that equips the faint. Picture an eagle's quiet glide, not frantic flapping. Imagine your breath finding that rhythm, steady, long, and able to carry you through the night. Now, hear an invitation to come and drink. Come, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. And he who has no money, come, buy and eat. Come, buy wine and milk without money and without price. Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Listen diligently to me, and eat what is good, and delight yourselves in rich food. This is a picture of provision that meets the deepest hunger. If your mind spends the night budgeting worry, imagining needs unmet and doors closed, receive this as a nighttime solace, a summons to an abundant table where the currency is not your frantic effort, but the simple act of coming. Rest becomes possible when you stop trying to purchase your own peace through more doing. Turn now to the promise of new things. Behold, I create new heavens and a new earth. The former things shall not be remembered nor come into mind. But be glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. For I create Jerusalem to be a joy, and her people a delight. Before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. Those lines are tender and daring. They do not pretend the past did not injure you. They insist the future is not determined by what has been broken. Imagine the act of God as a mother restoring broken pottery, careful, precise, and intent on beauty beyond the mere reassembly. If your night is full of memories like cracked bowls, imagine hands that will remake them into something new. Allow that image to be both a hope and a benediction. Listen also to this soft maternal promise. As one whom his mother comforts, so I will comfort you. You shall be comforted in Jerusalem. The way a mother calms a fevered child is not distant or removed. Imagine the Lord caring with that closeness, familiar, knowing, tender. Let that image soften the tightness around your heart. Isaiah paints community into this new creation as well. He sees streets filled with safe life, children playing, the old living long, labor bearing full fruit without sting. He pictures a world where grief is not erased, but transformed into a memory that no longer holds power to wound. Picture your own life folded into that city, not as the erasure of experience, but as the replacing of memories into a history that becomes part of a larger good. As this montage comes together, strength for the faint, waters for the thirsty, a new city being built, take a moment to feel the expanse of it all. You do not have to make this happen. The Lord, whose word endures longer than grass or flower, is at work. Let that be a quieting thought. The steady hand that writes galaxies also knows the unreadable parts of your heart. That knowledge invites rest. Gentle, practical anchors for sleep. Before the final benediction, I will offer 3 very small pastoral invitations, each one a soft way to carry Isaiah's images into the actual moments of sleep. These are not rules or rituals. They are tiny practices to guide the breath and imagination. First, choose a single phrase from tonight's listening and let it be your night claim. It might be, "By his wounds we are healed," or "Waters shall break forth in the wilderness," or simply, "The Lord will give strength." Repeat it like a lullaby when the mind starts its litany. Say it quietly to yourself. Let the phrase be soft and steady. Second, use a small physical gesture to anchor surrender. Perhaps you place your hand over your heart, or fold both hands loosely on your stomach. As you breathe, imagine the servant receiving the contents of that hand. Your worries, a list you cannot finish, the small humiliations you replay. The gesture helps the body believe the truth the mind is learning. Third, imagine a short pathway, no more than 3 clear steps, in your mind that leads from worry to rest. The first step is, I name it. Name a single concern. The second step is, I offer it. Picture placing it in the field with the servant. The third step is, I trust the work. Repeat the phrase you've chosen. Walk those 3 steps slowly in your imagination when the night noises rise. These anchors are small because your body needs small things to do at night. Grand gestures often wake the system. Tiny, repeated acts of imagination and breath are what steady the nervous system and allow sleep to come. A longer return to the servant. Centering benediction. We return one final time to the heart of Isaiah's message, the servant who bore, the Lord who restores, the branch that brings peace, the new heavens and earth that give horizon to our nights. Let us gather these threads into a benediction that you can carry into sleep. Listen as I speak these words slowly, as a blessing you can keep. The Lord who sees you in your waking fatigue sees you also now in your weariness. The servant's bearing is not distant from the small particulars that make your night heavy. What he bore was real. The healing that follows is true. The branch that grows from the stump promises a world where the weak are steadied and the fearful are given courage. The Lord's word endures, and his mercies meet you like quiet rain. Lay down your ledger. Lay down the long lists. You do not have to rehearse tomorrow in the dark. There will be time for that in the morning light. For now, place your cares beside you on the field where the servant stands. Let him hold them. Let the branch shade you. Let the promise of new things fill the small house of your chest with a cautious, deep hope. If you find yourself clinging to shame or replaying old hurts, whisper this to yourself, I am carried. If fear wakes you in the night, breathe this phrase, I am steadied. If you cannot find a phrase, simply breathe. Inhale, hold, exhale. Let the breath be a small sacrament of trust. And know this, the Lord is near to the broken. His voice breaks the silence of exile with comfort. The coal that touched Isaiah's lips burned not to wound, but to restore speech. The servant's silence was not indifference, but intercession. The branch's peace is not illusion, but the contour of a world God will make. Rest is not escape. It is the sleeping posture of trust, the posture of those who believe that what is most necessary has been taken up by one capable of carrying it. Final gentle invitation. If this time with Scripture has ministered to you, if the quiet pictures have eased a portion of your night, please consider subscribing or joining our playlist of peaceful Scripture readings so that more weary hearts might find this same space. It helps us share these long, restful sessions with others who need to hear a gentle voice and a faithful word. A closing word of blessing for your night. May the Lord, who neither slumbers nor sleeps, watch over you. May the servant's bearing become the place where your burdens are held. May the branch whisper peace into the place where you are most afraid. And may the hope of new creations settle like a quiet tide across your mind. Sleep in the finished work that makes such peace possible. Sleep in His peace. Good night.